In Battle of Gods, when Beerus first encounters Goku, he casually taps him to gauge his power. After doing so, he remarks that Goku likely wouldn't be able to defeat Frieza. This statement seems to contradict what we were previously told in the Buu Saga, such as comments suggesting that someone like Vegeta could easily eliminate the entire tournament in just his base form. These kinds of conflicting statements are a part of why so much ongoing debate about Dragon Ball Super's power scale. So let's start by tackling the core question: is this even possible? To answer that, we need to look at Goku's character. Goku has always been a fighter driven by the desire to improve. He's constantly training to become stronger, always pushing towards greater limits. Throughout Dragon Ball Z, his growth in strength is nothing short of remarkable. One of the most striking examples of this is from the Saiyan saga leading into the Frieza saga. In just 6 days of training on his way to Namek, Goku managed to surpass the entire history of his race, excluding figures like the legendary Super Saiyan or the gods. At the start of that period, he was significantly weaker than Vegeta. Yet, by the time he arrived on Namek, he was strong enough to stand toe-to-toe with Frieza's final form, after receiving a powerful Zenkai boost. That kind of rapid growth is extraordinary. Through Zenkai boost gradually becoming less effective over time, Goku continued to train relentlessly. After the events on Namek, he pushed his strength even further while stranded on Yardrat. By the time he returned to Earth, he had become so powerful that Trunks stated Goku could have easily defeated both Mecha Frieza and King Cole with little effort, possibly even just using a finger, as Trunks had demonstrated with the same technique. All of this showcases just how quickly and dramatically Goku can grow in power, even within short windows of time. And it helps explain how Goku's strength could vary so widely depending on where you're looking in the series, which in turn is why debates like this one exist in the first place. Then we're introduced to the androids, synthetic warriors capable of effortlessly defeating Super Saiyans. Even Gohan, despite his immense potential and rigorous training, couldn't stand up to them in future Trunks' timeline. This was the grim reality Goku was trying to avoid, so for 3 years he dedicated himself to training in order to surpass not only the androids but the other Super Saiyans as well. Not long after, Cell appears and absorbs these already formidable androids. These are the same androids that could have overwhelmed Goku, who had trained intensely for 3 years. Cell, after fusing with them, becomes a new threat altogether, but then Goku enters the hyperbolic time chamber, trains for a single year, and comes out with enough power to defeat those same androids in an instant. You see where this is going. Goku's growth in strength has always been exponential throughout the series. Now imagine him undergoing even more rigorous training for 7 whole years. Post Cell games leading into the Buu Saga, that's exactly what happened. So when you ask whether Goku could reach new heights even in his base form, the answer is yes, it's entirely within reason. Now, one of the key arguments against the idea that Goku's base form could rival or surpass someone like Frieza comes from Battle of Gods and Dragon Ball Super. The moment Beerus slightly taps on Goku and remarks that he doesn't think Goku could defeat Frieza, not even in Super Saiyan, has become a central point for those who believe Goku's base isn't as strong as Frieza. But let's dig into that scene a bit deeper. After Goku transforms into a Super Saiyan, Beerus still doubts whether he could win against Frieza. He even adds, "Maybe you are," showing a hint of uncertainty. Many fans interpret this to mean that even a suppressed Super Saiyan is definitely stronger than someone at full power in base form. But that interpretation has some flaws. Let's take an example from later in the series during Resurrection F. Goku is shot by a simple laser while in his Super Saiyan blue form. This moment sparked debate, but the truth is Goku had suppressed his power to such an extreme that he was actually weaker than his base form at the time. We've seen Base Goku even in the Namek Saga shrug off Frieza's death beams that would be much stronger than this laser here. So if he had been operating at full base level strength, he wouldn't have been harmed. This clearly shows that transformations like Super Saiyan or Super Saiyan Blue don't automatically mean the character is stronger if they're heavily suppressed. Power scaling in Dragon Ball depends on not just the form, but how much power the user is choosing to tap into at any given moment. And that's an important distinction that often gets overlooked. So yes, it is possible for a Super Saiyan to suppress themselves below their normal base form, especially when they've achieved the level of a Mastery Super Saiyan. At that stage, they have complete control over their power output, allowing them to fine-tune it like any natural state. This makes it very likely that Goku was simply suppressing himself when Beerus tapped him during their encounter. It's also important to note that Beerus has a habit of provoking others to get them to fight at their full potential. He's been portrayed as somewhat manipulative, often using psychological tactics to push his opponents. For example, he repeatedly threatens to destroy Earth during his battle with Goku, clearly trying to draw out Goku's true strength. We also see this similar behavior when he slaps Bulma, an act that seems brutal on the surface, but she turns out to be relatively unharmed. This could suggest Beerus was holding back significantly just to ignite Vegeta's rage and provoke a stronger response from him. This is notable when you consider that earlier a flick from Beerus nearly incapacitated Buu Saga Goku, yet a slap wasn't able to do any damage to Bulma. Later on, Beerus even tells Goku that he's the second strongest fighter he's faced. We later find out in Dragon Ball Super that this was a setup for Monaka. And what was his goal? to continue motivating Goku to keep going stronger ahead of Universe 6 vs 7 tournament. Then there's Tarble, Vegeta's younger brother. If you recall, when Tarble meets Goku, he's surprised by how weak Goku's power level seems. This is another clear example of Goku heavily suppressing himself. Tarble, a character Raditz once dismissed as insignificant, also mentions that a fighter named Abo, from the duo Abo and Cabo, has power comparable to Frieza. And what happens next? Goku and Vegeta hear the name Frieza and simply laugh, sending Goten and Trunks, still just kids, into their battle against Abo and Cabo. Remarkably, the two young Saiyans defeat the duo while remaining in their base forms. Of course, Tarble couldn't have known the full extent of Frieza's power, especially his final form, since Tarble never witnessed Frieza's full transformation back on Namek, but Goku certainly had. So when Goku hears Frieza, he naturally assumed is referring to Frieza at his peak, his final form. This matters because Goku's first actual encounter with Frieza was after all of his transformations, meaning his baseline for Frieza's strength has always been that final form, unlike Vegeta. All of this points to a consistent trend. Goku, in even his most powerful forms, is often holding back or operating far below his full potential in casual or unexpected situations. And that tendency has led to a lot of confusion when it comes to comparing his base strength form to characters like Frieza. Later on, Goku does witness Frieza at full power, so when the name Frieza comes up in conversation, it's safe to assume that Goku is thinking of the Virgin specifically. So, when Goku and Vegeta hear that Goten and Trunks should be able to handle someone comparable to Frieza, Goku is likely picturing final form Frieza at his peak. This is especially important when you consider that Yo-Son Goku and his friend Returns is officially considered canon, something confirmed when Dragon Ball Super references Tarble, the character introduced in that special. Now, let's examine some evidence that supports the idea that Goku is indeed stronger than Frieza in his base form. First, consider Piccolo during the Android Saga. At the time, he had surpassed Goku's Super Saiyan power level from the Namek arc, before fusing with Kami. After training alongside Goku and the others for 3 years, Piccolo had gained enough confidence to believe he could take on the androids himself. 19 and 20 without a question were far beyond Frieza's level, and yet Piccolo was able to defeat them easily. There's also the commonly debated claim made by Vegeta during the World Tournament when he boasted he could defeat anyone there, a group that included characters like Android 18 and fused Kami Piccolo. Now, whether base Vegeta could defeat Kami Piccolo is a little more uncertain, but it's not entirely out of the question either. However, Vegeta's pride and arrogance often color his statements, so it's a bit of evidence that remains shaky at best. Another notable moment is during the Buu Saga when Goku faces Yakon and Vegeta battles Pui Pui. At the time, Supreme Kai showed genuine concern over whether the Z Fighters could handle these threats, although he believed they could take on someone like Frieza. He wasn't confident they could beat Yakon or Pui Pui, suggesting that they were at his level at least. However, those doubts were quickly put to rest when Vegeta easily defeated Pui Pui and Goku took on Yakon using only his base form at first. It's worth noting that Goku likely could have defeated Yakon without transforming, but instead chose to go Super Saiyan to nullify Yakon's dark-based energy absorption by flooding the area with light. Even so, Goku was able to sense Yakon's energy and fight effectively, when just in his base form. This brings up an interesting point. It's possible that both Yakon and Pui Pui were above Frieza's level. While Pui Pui may fall short, Yakon certainly appears stronger than Super Saiyan Goku from the Namek Saga, given that he was able to absorb some of Goku's energy and still remains in the fight, despite Goku being far more powerful than he was 7 years prior during the Cell games. All of this suggests that by the Buu Saga, Goku's base power had reached a point where even beings potentially stronger than Frieza were no longer real threats. Someone like Yakon shouldn't have been able to make a massive Super Saiyan Goku even flinch, let alone push him back. Another piece of supporting evidence, though considered non-canon by some, comes from the anime filler. If you're someone who prefers to focus on the manga or canon material, you might choose to disregard it. However, it still offers valuable insight. In the Otherworld Tournament arc, Pikkon was shown to effortlessly defeat both Frieza and King Cold, overwhelming them in a single swift attack, as well as Super Perfect Cell. What's truly interesting is that after a short period of training in the Otherworld, Goku in his base form was able to outmatch Pikkon. This means Base Goku at the time had already reached a level where he could replicate Pikkon's feat, easily defeating Frieza and King Cold without needing to transform. Not only that, but Base Goku was also capable of knocking away Perfect Cell during this arc, launching him back into his containment. While you can assume Cell might have been holding back in the scene, the fact remains that Goku did this in his base form, which is still an impressive feat considering Cell's overall strength. Then there's Gohan, who also provides strong evidence of how far the characters had progressed by the Buu Saga. The Daizenshuu, an official guidebook for the Dragon Ball series, mentions that Base Gohan could defeat Kibito if he were to fight seriously. This is particularly noteworthy because Kibito himself is implied to be powerful enough to eliminate someone like Frieza without much effort. Let that sink in for a moment. Gohan without transforming is regarded as a rival to Kibito. All of this comes together to support the idea that by the time of the Buu Saga, characters like Goku and Gohan in their base form had reached levels of strength well beyond that of Frieza. The evidence, whether from canon or supplemental sources, strongly points to this conclusion, making this matchup not even close. One of the most popular ongoing debates in the Dragon Ball community revolves around versus battles, pitting a character against another in a hypothetical matchup. From the beginning of the series, fans have enjoyed imagining fights between characters who never actually clashed on screen. And as the story progressed, it became just as exciting to consider rematches between characters, only now using their stronger later versions to see how the outcome might change. One of our most well-received discussions on the channel explored a scenario where Buu Saga Goku went up against Namek Saga Frieza. Naturally, if Frieza had to face a Super Saiyan 3 level opponent, the fight wouldn't last very long. But to narrow down the question and make it more interesting, we look specifically at Goku's base form during the Buu Saga versus Frieza at full power on Namek. If you haven't seen that video yet, be sure to check it out on the channel. In this video, we'll be applying the same idea to Vegeta. Could base form Vegeta during the Buu Saga defeat 100% full power Frieza from Namek? We'll find out. If you enjoy conversations like this and want to take part in deeper Dragon Ball discussions, I highly encourage you to join the Dragon Ball HQ Discord server, link below in the description. We'll be diving into this topic and more over there. Now, without further delay, let's begin. One interesting thing about the discussions of base Vegeta in Dragon Ball Z is that after Vegeta and most other Saiyans unlocked their Super Saiyan forms, their base forms were rarely used in serious combat. It wasn't until the Buu Saga that we saw Vegeta actively fighting in his base form again, specifically during his match against Pui. For now, let's examine Vegeta's base strength leading up to this point so we can better understand how powerful he was at the start of the Buu Saga. Looking back, one of Vegeta's biggest boosts in his base form came during his fight with Frieza on Namek. After being blasted at point-blank range in the chest by Krillin, Vegeta experienced an enormous Zenkai boost. Before this, he was already showing surprising strength, holding his own in a power struggle against Frieza's first form. Something that even surprised Frieza himself. At the time, Frieza's battle power in this form was around 530,000, while Vegeta's was estimated to be between 200 and 300,000. Following the Zenkai boost, Vegeta was able to react in ways that others could not. Notably, he saved Gohan from a death beam fired by Frieza, a blast that neither Gohan nor Piccolo could detect. This is significant because Piccolo at the time was comparable in strength to Frieza's second form, whose power level was roughly 1 million. Based on these feats, Vegeta's power after the Zenkai is generally estimated to have been in the 1 to 2 million range. Stronger than Piccolo, but still notably below Goku's 3 million battle power upon arrival. After being killed by Frieza, Vegeta was revived and trained extensively over the next 3 years in preparation for the android threat. At this point, he had a considerable gap to close. Both Goku and future Trunks were already Super Saiyan while he was not. Determined to catch up, Vegeta specifically asked Dr. Brief to build him a gravity training chamber reaching 300 times Earth's normal gravity, triple the intensity Goku used on his journey to Namek. Using a basic linear scaling approach, we can estimate just how strong Vegeta might have become after his intense 3 years of gravity training. I want to preface this by saying that this is indeed linear scaling, and likely a conservative estimate, but it proves a reasonable framework to argue that Vegeta's power grew far beyond his previous levels. To gauge Vegeta's growth during these 3 years, it helps to look at Goku's progression under similar conditions, albeit for a much shorter time and under less gravity. After his battle with Vegeta on Earth, Goku received a Zenkai boost roughly comparable to Vegeta's, since both suffered similar injuries. Goku's situation, however, might have even been more severe since he was temporarily unable to move or speak without the use of telekinesis at one point. For example, while Vegeta's power rose from about 18,000 to 24,000, we can say that Goku went from roughly 8,000 to 14,000. Then, after training for 6 days in 100 times Earth gravity before arriving on Namek, Goku's full power skyrocketed to 90,000, a roughly 6.43 times increase. Keep in mind, Goku didn't stay at 100 times gravity the entire time. He gradually worked up to that level, which was the peak of his training. Applying this same logic to Vegeta, who trained under 300 times Earth gravity for 3 years, his base power could theoretically reach around 22,894,856. For those interested in the exact calculations, I'll post a full breakdown on my Discord server, Dragon Ball HQ. This number is almost certainly a lowball since Vegeta, being a prodigy, might have experienced even greater gains than Goku. However, unlike Goku, Vegeta didn't have access to sensu beans to instantly recover and push through exhaustion, which would have limited his training immensely to some extent. Interestingly though, in the DBZ anime filler, episodes show Vegeta already surpassing 300 times Earth gravity even before achieving Super Saiyan, performing exercises like finger push-ups and 400 times gravity. And this would suggest that the gravity figures we just came up with is also an insane lowball, but we'll use it for the sake of the video. Moving forward, we see a massive leap in Vegeta's power when he trains inside the Room of Spirit and Time. It's here that Vegeta manages to close the gap between himself and fighters like Android 18 and Semi-Perfect Cell. While his primary focus in the chamber was to surpass the limits of Super Saiyan, it's reasonable to assume his base form also experienced tremendous growth as a result of his training. Vegeta entered the time chamber twice, spending a total of 3 to 4 years inside, though it's unclear if he used a full 2 years during his second visit. Given that the time chamber is a far superior training environment compared to the gravity room, assuming Vegeta achieved at least the same gains he did from gravity training is a very safe, if not lowballed, estimate. Under this conservative approach, his base power would have increased 3 to 4 times, bringing him to approximately 68,684,568, or if he used a full 4 years, 91,579,424. Now, some might argue that Vegeta didn't grow as much stronger during his second stay since he didn't surpass Goku or Gohan, but that's not a valid counterpoint. By this stage, both Goku and Gohan as Master Super Saiyans were far ahead of Vegeta, meaning there was still plenty of room for him to improve without catching up to them entirely. In fact, Vegeta left the time chamber confident that he could defeat Cell. Before Goku fought Cell, he asked Vegeta if he could go first, and Vegeta replied that Goku could do whatever he wanted, but that he, Vegeta, would be the one to finish Cell off for good. For him to make such a claim, he would need to believe that he had at least grown strong enough to defeat the perfect Cell that beat him earlier, which implies a significant increase in strength. Evidence that we're still heavily downplaying base Vegeta's power by this point comes from future Trunks. In his base form, Trunks was able to send Imperfect Cell flying at an incredible distance before the bio-android could recover. Given that Vegeta and Trunks were portrayed as roughly equal in strength during the Cell games, both were able to hold their own against the Cell Juniors. It follows that Vegeta's base form was already formidable. If base Vegeta could physically overpower Imperfect Cell the same way Trunks did, who scaled above full power Frieza significantly, then even with conservative estimates, he should have been capable of defeating Frieza with ease during the Cell Saga. After the Cell Saga concludes, we get a 7-year time skip leading into the Buu Saga. During this time, Vegeta trains relentlessly, not only to achieve Super Saiyan 2, but also to close the gap between himself and Gohan. If we apply the same conservative scaling earlier, 7 more years of intense training would make him roughly 7 times stronger than before, giving him a base power level of 480,791,976 or 641,055,968 if you assume massive gain. Either way, this is well beyond full power Frieza's level, even under extremely low ball considerations. The narrative also supports the idea that base Vegeta at the start of the Buu Saga could easily destroy many previous villains. For instance, Vegeta confidently stated he would win the 25th World Martial Arts Tournament in just his base form. This is notable given that competitors like Android 18 and Piccolo, both vastly stronger than full power Frieza, were also in this tournament. Some might dismiss this confidence as Vegeta's ego, but that's not entirely accurate. Vegeta has shown multiple times that he can acknowledge when others are stronger than him, such as admitting that Trunks and Goku were stronger than before when they were a Super Saiyan, or when he warned the Z-Fighters they were doomed against Mecha Frieza's arrival. Furthermore, when Vegeta made his confident claim about winning the tournament, he also clarified that this would apply only if no Saiyans were allowed to transform, which would be self-admitting that a rusty Super Saiyan Gohan in the Buu Saga would beat him if he wasn't able to turn Super Saiyan as well. This shows that his confidence wasn't just blind arrogance. He genuinely believed his base form at this stage was strong enough to beat nearly everyone else in attendance. When you add in the fact that Shin's reactions and overall demeanor during the events of the Babidi ship suggest that his power may not be on par with the base Saiyans, surprise at the sheer strength displayed by Goku and Vegeta in their base forms implies that he likely viewed him as weaker in comparison. Shin's reactions and overall demeanor during the events of Babidi's ship suggest that his power may not be on par with the base Saiyans in his own right. His surprise at the sheer strength displayed by Goku and Vegeta in their base forms implies that he likely viewed himself as weaker in comparison. This supports the idea that Piccolo's hesitation to confront Shin was not purely due to an assumed power gap, but perhaps out of caution or uncertainty. Pui and Yakone, while visually imposing, were nowhere near the level of Goku, Vegeta, or even Gohan in their base form. Shin's visible concern during these encounters, whether in suggesting that they should fight together or reacting to the shock of the Z-Fighters' confidence, further emphasizes the gulf in power. Dabura and Babidi themselves even identified Gohan, Goku, and Vegeta as the 3 strongest warriors present, placing the Supreme Kai below even their base forms. This assessment was also made before they even witnessed the Saiyan Super Saiyan transformations, just their base form, even when factoring in Gohan's lack of training time. Babidi and Dabura never listed Piccolo or Krillin among the top fighters, signaling that they were not viewed as major threats, and that Vegeta in his base form would be stronger than this Kami-fused Piccolo, who is vastly stronger than Frieza. So base form Vegeta would beat the hell out of Frieza in the Buu Saga, and there's really no competition, making this fight not even close.